worked in the telecom sector in the late 90s in New York, and then had a Shah Rukh Khan from Swadesh type of feeling, and decided to come back to India. Ended up founding one of the earliest e-commerce companies in India in 2001. The one thing that the entrepreneur, and especially an Indian entrepreneur, needs to learn is to deal with uncertainty. The only thing that is certain is uncertainty. And I was in a very good company and just a year away from a green card and all of that kind of stuff. So, ये तो पागलपंती है. But actually, पागलपंती और जुनून के बीच में बहुत अंतर नहीं होता. So it was passion, यार. I mean, I just went ahead and.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Fintech Ki Baat. Today we have with us Mr. Chris George, co-founder and CEO of Qube Health. Hi, Mr. Chris. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you for having me, Shreyas. Good to connect with you.
Great. Super excited to hear from you about your incredible journey of building Qube Health and the unique business model that you're running. So let's get straight into it with our first segment, Founder Story, wherein we'll talk about your entire entrepreneurship journey, what inspired you to build, and how did you get where you are today. So let's take it from the top. Chris, let's start. What essentially inspired you to get into entrepreneurship? And before that, just a quick background of yourself.
Sure. So I'm from Mumbai or Bombay. I grew up here. Went off to the US when I was 17 for my undergrad in business in Texas, and then moved to New York to do my master's again in business. Worked in the telecom sector in the late 90s in New York, and then had a Shah Rukh Khan from Swadesh type of feeling, and decided to come back to India. Ended up founding one of the earliest e-commerce companies in India in 2001. Funded by ICICI Ventures and a few other well-known people. We were one of the few unfashionably profitable .coms during that time. And we did that by essentially powering e-commerce for some 33 of the top .coms in the country. Essentially, if you went to any of those platforms and bought anything, the back end was us. So that kind of kept us afloat. We, of course, pivoted that into a different business after the .com crash happened. I wish I had continued that business for another 5 years, because then we could have probably competed or contended with Flipkart, which is what a lot of my investors from that time say, that Chris, काश बिजनेस कंटिन्यू किया होता. तो मैंने कहा कि काश आपने फंडिंग भी कंटिन्यू की होती तो शायद हम लोग वैसे भी हो जाते. बट no regrets there, because we pivoted that business into a technology led marketing services company. Simple तरीके से बोलो तो basically we built a digital marketing agency.
I see.
We built websites, ran loyalty programs, rewards programs, and so on and so forth for various sectors, from airlines to BFSI, etc. Just to give you a perspective, the HSBC credit card rewards program in our country was built and run by us. The Kingfisher Airlines King Club program was built by us. That business did really well. We grew to 400 something people, both organically and inorganically. We acquired 2 companies in the US, another one in Europe, another one in Delhi, and essentially had Fortune 1000 clients and so on and so forth. 2013, I exited that business and essentially decided that I was going to be a angel investor / early stage investor with me and a few of my friends, and which is when really I started thinking about Qube. This was due to a incident of cancer in my family, where because of my Western education, my natural bent of mind was, let's find out where the best doctor is, best hospital is. But my family members said that yaar pehle to paise arrange karne padenge. And I kept thinking that why this disconnect, right, between the two. I reached out to my friend Gagan Kapoor, who's also my co-founder in this business, Qube. And interestingly enough, he came in from a family that ran India's second largest insurance third-party administrator, or insurance TPA, right? In simple terms, that means an insurance back office that is processing claims, right? And in spite of being such a large company, he himself was dealing with his own issues with cancer in the family, where he basically said, it's really strange that the only way that we feel that we can solve the healthcare access problem in our country is by solving the healthcare payments problem first. Ultimately, अगर आपको healthcare चाहिए तो पैसे होने चाहिए, वरना कुछ नहीं हो सकता. And that really got us thinking, and that's how we built a thesis. We wrote a thesis, and then in 2020 started the business.
Interesting. So again, I think what really intrigues me in your entire journey is the fact you started from something completely different in e-com as a backend service provider. From there, now into health, and the entire transition that you went through, being a retail investor in between as well. How essentially different situations in your life kind of inspired you to go to a completely different vertical and build. So this kind of brings in mind something about transferability of skills and how essentially most of the successful entrepreneurs are able to leverage them. So I want to hear your views on how were you able to kind of do that, and how did you kind of switch verticals so seamlessly throughout your last 30 years of 20-30 years of career journey? Sorry, I'm bad at math.
That's fine. That's actually a very pertinent question, and I tell this to my team as well, right? So first, I have a theory that generalists should rule the world, right? Essentially, you need to be knowing a little bit about a lot of things, and as a generalist, then you get to the top. You need to surround yourself with people who are specialists, who can then essentially augment the areas that you are weak in, and then kind of build from there. But I'll give you an anecdote, right? My first entrepreneurial stint was actually not when I came back from the US and built the e-commerce company. My first entrepreneurial stint was when I was 16 years old. It happened because naturally I come from a middle class background. My father didn't give me much pocket money, and I needed to earn some money at the side legally. So we ended up founding me and a few friends. We ended up doing that by actually founding an event management company.
Interesting.
And we did a bunch of things from music shows to rock concerts to fashion shows and so on and so forth, and we earned the money. And I believe in many ways the seeds of entrepreneurship in me were kind of seeded at that point. And doing everything from actually going to sponsors like Coca-Cola and asking them for a sponsorship when you have no idea what a request for sponsorship letter looks like or a proposal looks like. Sitting with the printers because you needed to print posters and artworks and all of that, and then telling you that artwork de dena, and you have no idea. So these are all complex, and especially I believe event management is one such industry that is extremely complex because it's got so many variables. But coming to what I do today, I believe the one thing that the entrepreneur, and especially an Indian entrepreneur, needs to learn is to deal with uncertainty. The only thing that is certain is uncertainty. So if you wake up with that mindset that aaj pata nahi kya hoga, but I will figure out to align these variables to achieve my cause, you are at least in a better mental state of mind. Which is very different, I think, when you come in from a professional setup. Because in a professional setup, there are structures, there is an order to things, and entrepreneurship is absolutely chaos. So I think switching that takes a bit this thing. But my final point on that question would be dealing with uncertainty, dealing with people at the end of the day is essentially what you need to kind of bring in. And since your podcast says Fintech Ki Baat, I believe the underlying part over here is Dhande Ki Baat, right? At the end, it's about a business. So that's what my 2 cents are.
Perfect. No, I think that is brilliant, and it really does give a lot of insight. And as you rightly said, right, I have seen it a lot more often than I would want to kind of I used to believe earlier. But at most of the organizations which are extremely fast growing and has a larger economic impact, there are always generalists at the top strategizing and has kind of making sense for the specialists to build in their specific areas, right? And in many newer organizations as well, what I have essentially seen is the organization tends to kind of rotate leaderships as well in different silos, right? A CPO after 5 years would also be a CMO, and then probably after next 2-3 years he would again be shifted to a CBO, right? Thereby developing generalists at a senior management level, and then that person becomes ready to get elevated to the next level at a MD or a CEO because he has a holistic view of what's happening, right? And I think that really does make sense, although generalists normally do feel, and I identify as a generalist from like day one because I've always been trying to figure out what do I specialize in, but then I realized कि नहीं यार, हर चीज में इंटरेस्ट है, हर चीज में कुछ न कुछ, हर चीज का सब कुछ नहीं आता है, but कुछ न कुछ तो आता है, so that I can at least get it off the hook and get it started. So
I call it knowing enough to be dangerous.
That's an optimistic way of looking. Yeah, that really does make sense. Having said that, right, taking a step back here and kind of a flashback to your initial days when you got into entrepreneurship, first in your event management company, and then again when you came back from the US and started your digital marketing and the e-commerce venture. How do you essentially kind of plan for not having your salary in your hand for next 1 year or so? Like, ये जो नशा है वो जल्दी लोगों से छूटता नहीं है, right? And ultimately, if you are still gutsy enough to take that leap of faith, how do you plan to live without a salary for the foreseeable future?
Okay. So there are 2-3 ways to answer this, right? First is anybody in the entrepreneurship life that tells you that they have a 2-year plan or a 3-year plan is lying or is delusional, right? Basically, 6 महीने के आगे का तो मतलब there is no vision. There is very, very difficult. What you're doing beyond 6 months is just speculating, right? Now, what you can do is probably arrive at the best possible speculation with the information you have at that point in time, and then things kind of change. Now, if you operate in that kind of an environment, if you have to plan to quit, hypothetically, your high-paying professional corporate job and then become an entrepreneur, what you should ideally do is plan for finances or at least sustenance for at least a year. But be very brutal on yourself कि 6 महीने के अंदर product market fit होना चाहिए, right? Not funding, not this thing. You should know if you have product market fit within 6 months. Now, I will put another qualifier on top. Usually, the actual PMF ends up happening much later, right? So the advantage perhaps a professional who is considering entrepreneurship has is to work on trying to find product market fit while they have a day job, and wait for that particular point in time where you have got, paying customers just about to happen, and then take the 6 months off to try and build that up. So you can try and mitigate that risk to whatever extent possible.
That makes sense.
Right now, so that's my binary response to it. Having said that, entrepreneurship is a lot about emotions as well. Your own mental state, the toll it takes on you, and so on and so forth. The pressures, खुद को छोड़ के, लोगों की तनख्वाह के बारे में arrangement करना, rent देना, getting resources, making pitches, getting constantly rejected by investors, constantly rejected by potential employees, and so on and so forth. So anyway, there is your mental state and emotional state to deal with. Then there is the emotional state and mental state of your family members. If you have a spouse or a partner, if you have kids, if you have parents. I came from a conservative family in that sense. So and I gave up a corporate job in New York, and my mom thought I was crazy. She said that, this is the worst possible thing that you could do. What is the point of you getting this opportunity to go abroad, finding a very good job, and I was in a very good company, and just a year away from a green card and all of that kind of stuff. So, ये तो पागलपन नहीं है. But actually पागलपंती और जुनून के बीच में बहुत अंतर नहीं होता. So so it was passion. Yeah, I mean, I just went ahead and did it, and I didn't expect to actually kind of get into that, but one thing led to another, and here we are. I can tell you one thing, and since you said that as well, once you bite the entrepreneurial bug, and you've been doing it for a long time, it's very difficult to go back. Very difficult.
True. Yeah, I think this is brilliantly said, and I think this is really inspiring as well. What really kind of stood out to me is the fact that that part when you suggested कि यार पहले आप PMF hit करने के वर्ष पे आ रहे हो, you realize that you will get a paying customer, and that is when you kind of take that leap of faith and get into it. My one question here, and I think this is probably a dumb question, but how do you define PMF when it comes to, is it a static definition that is good for all, or it varies?
Yeah, that's again a pertinent question. So either you have a customer who's willing to pay, or you have customers who are willing to use, and I use them very specifically as a singular or a plural. If a customer, at least one customer, is willing to pay, that means there is value that right. He or she is ascribing, and therefore they are willing to put money where their mouth is and pay karne ke liye taiyar, right? If, for example, your product is such where you are not upfront in a stage where a user will pay for your product, you need to be able to show that a large number of people are willing to use, even if they are not paying. Right? And I think Facebook is a classic example of that,
right?
And how it started off. So those two things are very, very important, because both of them teaches you. A paying customer will demand value which is more than the price that they are paying, and therefore hopefully your product gets better. You will build a referenceable client. That client will probably give you more clients, or if you go to another client, you'll be able to use them as a reference. If it's a free product and people are not using it or not making it viral, that means you don't have product market. It's as simple as that.
Perfect. No, I think that kind of brings a lot more clarity, because I've heard a lot of people say PMF आना चाहिए, but the definitions of PMF ultimately kind of is the bookish definition that we get, and this, what you just explained, kind of helps me and the audience contextualize on how to look at it from a realistic lens, and that's really helpful. Having said that, and having been building for almost the better part of the decade or probably more, what would be the 3 don'ts that you would advise for budding entrepreneurs that are listening to this?
Okay, let me think through this. So first one that instantly comes to mind is don't hire indiscriminately. That's the surefire way to squander away or give away whatever little money you may have either saved or put together or you've got from your investors. You have to find a group of people that are willing to work 200-300% like you would in the early stages, and this is very, very critical. It's the single biggest reason why startups fail, because you focus on ठीक है, मुझे ये काम करने के लिए at least 10 लोग तो लगेंगे. So then you figure out, now the challenges that come about as a result of that is that out of those 10, let's say 5 of them are not good. You will not find out those 5 are not good until 6 months ago. Then the replacement cost and this and that is too high. So if you're able to get a core group of people together, maybe they are your co-founders, maybe they are part of the founding team, who are willing to actually go a little bit above and beyond, you will be able to stretch whatever resources you have to try and reach that stage. Resources is not just the money or the infrastructure, but it's also your time. Right? Because in the early stages, you want to get to market as quickly as possible. So that's one thing that you should avoid getting wrong. Second is being focused on 1 or 2 things that is the core of the product that you're trying to sell. Like with most products and services, the use cases बहुत सारे हो. right? And you, in your vision as a founder, you may have an idea that यार ये हो जाएगा ना, फिर ये भी कर लूँगा, वो भी कर लूँगा, वगैरह वगैरह. What you need to focus on is that your customer or your user has the attention span of a 5-year-old child, which means that your messaging to them should be, अच्छा ये product जो ये करता है, that is what is most important. Okay, so to put it in real world, अच्छा Zomato से आप खूब सारा खाना मंगा सकते हो, Swiggy से आप खाना मंगा सकते हो, but they have multiple other use cases as well, but the core proposition that you're known for is that Book My Show is where you go to buy entertainment tickets. So that category definition for your product is very, very important. So don't say that अच्छा हम ये भी हैं, वो भी हैं, ये भी हैं, वो भी हैं. That will be too much. Right. iPhone is a iPhone because the very basic proposition of a phone should be that you should be able to talk to someone reliably. Everything else is a value add on top of that. You cannot sell the phone just by saying that your camera is damn good, but the phone की quality जो है, जो call करने के वक्त वो थोड़ी सी खराब. You can't do it. So I think that's the second thing that you can actually potentially get wrong. The third is actually taking money from the wrong kind of investor. And it could be your favorite uncle or friend or an investor who's an angel investor or a syndicate and so on and so forth. I think, and that is a long list in itself of things that can go wrong.
Makes sense. No, I think I've heard the last one. I can't remember how many times I've heard it. Because you have to find the right investor. It's like a marriage, and I think this really drives that point home. Having said that, like one question that I really get from a lot of our listeners who are budding entrepreneurs and are at the brink of taking that leap of faith is पता कैसे चलेगा कि यही आइडिया है जिसके लिए मुझे वो करना चाहिए या वो leap of faith लेना चाहिए. What are your views?
So which is why that in my earlier response I said that while you are working, keep trying to find that product market fit. A product market fit is not your friends and family who tell you यार बहुत बढ़िया आइडिया है यार कर ले, फंडिंग हो जाएगी, ये हो जाएगा. No, a product market fit is an unknown person. It could be an enterprise customer or it could be an individual user who believes that okay, I don't know you, I have know this thing, but I feel you're solving a problem for me. I think that is what is important. So a lot of entrepreneurs, at least what I've seen, their alpha test of a product usually happens in their friends and family network. I would actually urge you to go beyond. Go to people you don't know. So go to, it could be schools, it could be colleges, it could be, I don't know, find those groups, find those clusters where that potential customer base of yours is. Go and talk to them. It's actually perhaps culturally a slightly different thing here, but in India I have found that if you were to build a product, let's say you are building an enterprise SaaS product, right? For you to have the ability to pick up the phone and call up, let's say, a banking brand or an insurance brand and say that yaar main ek product bana raha hu, can I come and talk to you for gyan? The chances are slightly lower that they will agree. They'll be like, yaar, why should I give you gyan? What is the thing? And so on and so forth. Whereas abroad, especially in the US culturally, it's a very, very known phenomenon. So a lot of the youngsters who are entrepreneurs over there, they actually have the ability to pick up the phone and go and call a senior executive in a large company and say, look, I'm trying to build something. Can I get some advice? I think culturally it's very different. Having said that, in India, I think syndicates, angel syndicates and all of these associations like TIE and whatnot, they are bridging that gap. They are able to get you access to mentors and possibly people in that industry who can actually who have time available, right? And they are willing to kind of that. The good news is if you do that, you might also get some money and investors.
True. Perfect. No, I think this is really, really helpful and really insightful. Thanks a lot, Chris. I think this was really an insightful conversation, and I really got to learn a lot of interesting stuff that I kind of did not know earlier. Thank you so much for that. Having said that, we'll take a quick break and come back with our part 2, which is Fintech Ki Baat. Stay tuned.